Talk a little bit about targets. Talked about safety. Anything is a target, potential target, right? You throw at a cloud for that matter, or the ground. Anything's a target, potentially. Doesn't mean it's a good target. You practice safely and responsibly so you can keep practicing to get to your ultimate best state as a knife thrower. You start having accidents, that could impact your whole career, progression path as a knife thrower. So we're going to talk about targets briefly before we get into the actual throwing and knives. Hard targets versus soft targets. Hard target would be plywood, hardwood, whatever it might be. Soft targets, anything from a balloon, flesh. Soft targets, wood. Pine wood's pretty soft. If you throw pine trees will sap all over your knives. It'll be a sticky mess if you throw pine trees, living ones. Preferably dead pine trees, a pretty soft target. This is maple, which is hardwood, but it's throwing at it from this section is kind of softer than throwing it from the side. All right, the difference with soft and hard targets. The thing to keep in mind: if you throw at a hard target and you miss, you're going to have more of a bounce back. All that energy is going to be transferred. It's all about energy transfer from your arm, which transfers from your arm to the thrown knife to the target. When it impacts, the target is going to absorb that energy. If you miss, and the target's a hard target, like plywood, it's pretty hard, and you miss, all that transferred energy is going to be coming right back at you. So throwing at hard targets, I can't think of a better example than just some really hard wood, plywood, things like that. Be mindful that the bounce back's going to be all that much more coming at you fast. Also, throwing at hard targets, I hope the wind isn't baffling this too much. Throwing at hard targets is pretty detrimental to your knife. It'll break a knife blade. It'll break any pens or any things that are on the knife blade. So you want a soft target, ideally, to practice on. This qualifies as a soft target because I'm throwing at it from this side. And also this gives. Okay, I just happened to find this piece of wood laying where they cut some trees up in the woods. And, it's a pretty good target. I don't think I could wear this out. I bought some eye bolts here. The thing weighed about 250 pounds. This is parachute cord. And I had to use a pulley to hoist it up here because I'm doing this by myself in the woods. So I hoisted it up with a pulley, tied it off to a tree, then attached these chains to it. If the rope breaks, big deal. I'll get a better rope or put it up with a chain or steel cable. Probably a steel cable would be best to suspend this on. But I can't recommend this enough. I've got it suspended between two trees because, honestly, if you look around, I'll pan around with this camera in the woods. Do you really see any tree limbs sticking out that I could have tied this to? No, there aren't any. The only place you're going to find a tree with limbs coming out to the side that you could hang a knife target up on, that tree's going to have to be out in the open. Otherwise, trees grow straight up to try to reach the light, not out. So if you're going to set this up in the woods, you're going to wind up suspending it probably between two trees like this one. Whatever else you can think of, The effects on a bounce back could break your knife. Hard targets will break your knife. And when I get into the types of knives, we'll talk about what's desirable for your knife throwing. Full tang construction, soft steel, and we'll talk more about that in the next chapter on knives. Here's a target idea, pretty simple. balloons make good targets. Staple them to whatever you're throwing at. Kind of gives you an instant feedback, pop. You know you hit the target point first. You could, I don't know what to say about throwing at trees. I've definitely done it, my share. There's a lot of people out there that probably think that's just awful to use a tree for a target. I don't think I've ever killed a tree in my life throwing knives at it. Seriously, not at all, not even close. But I'm using this, and if you want to throw at trees, that's up to you. I throw at this, I throw at dead trees, I throw at trees. I use trees. You could staple, if you find a nice safe place to do this, you could put these balloons on different trees around you for varied targets. The wind's picking up. What else is there to say about targets? You want to make sure that where your target is, the ground between where you're going to be throwing from and where your target is, you're going to have to take into consideration that that ground is going to be traveled on quite a bit. And half the time you're going to be traveling on that ground, you're going to be carrying a knife. You don't want to trip or slip carrying knives. That just opens you up for an accident. So be mindful that the ground is going to be traveled on a lot. It could become muddy, could become slick. Look for tanglefoot. Look for things that you could trip on between your throwing positions and your target, and clear them out of the way so that you're not tripping over rocks, stumps, or what have you. Roots between yourself and your target. Have a good clear path to it. Do I have anything else? I think really that's about it for targets. Indoor targets. In my book I covered ideas for an indoor target knife throwing range. If you live in a city, which some of you do, you're going to have to consider that. You're going to be throwing smaller knives for one thing, indoors. And make sure it's a soft target, like a lot of cardboard, layers of cardboard put together, and smaller knives, most likely. A knife will do a lot of damage inside a house, I know. Trust me, I know. From my younger, more irresponsible years, a lot of damage. Was there anything else? Nope. I think that's it for targets. When we go into throwing knives, I'll be throwing at these balloons a lot. You'll actually see me throwing it and popping balloons and doing all that stuff. I think that's all I wanted to cover with targets. Be mindful of your path between your position and a target, so you don't slip. And soft targets versus hard targets. Hard targets. The harder the target, less immovable. A hard target doesn't move. You're going to get that transfer of energy between a thrown knife is going to transfer back if you miss coming at you. Whereas opposed to if you miss and a target's soft, or at least it gives some, the target's going to absorb some of that energy. So less damage to your knife and less potential for your knife to sail back and hit you or somebody. So preferably soft targets for knife throwing. Targets that move, that give with the throw, absorb some of the energy. You probably know this. If I punch somebody with that fist, pow, right, as hard as I can, regardless of whatever, that is going to absorb all that surface material. The energy is going to be transferred from, that's actually a lot of surface material. See people bare knuckle fighting all the time. I used to do it when I was younger. It's been a few years. Probably, I'd say my last fight's behind me, hopefully. But when you throw a knife, all that energy behind your throw, and your throw is about as strong as your best punch, your best Sunday haymaker punch. That's how much energy you're putting behind your throw. All that energy is transferred right there. That tip. And a knife is made to penetrate and to cut. So there's quite a potential. You try to throw at soft targets. And ones, if you can help it, if you could rig up something like this, I'd suggest, I'm using 550 cord. Steel cable would be better, but this works. Something that gives too. So spare your knife and minimize the risk of you getting hit with a pretty bad bounce back if you're throwing at a hard target, plywood or something that's not movable. I think that's it for, that's it. I think we're going to be getting into knives next. And that actually might be done indoors, not in the woods. And once I discuss knives a bit, then we're going to get into actual throwing techniques. And that'll be back out here in the woods, obviously. So stay tuned. Thank you.